Words, help me out here. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
What he did the first day, so should be a good show.
All right, running the dials as always, Mr. Deep State himself, Dawson. How you doing there, buddy?
I'm doing good. It's cold. It's cold, but otherwise.
Your car didn't even start this morning.
Yeah, it didn't. And don't worry, people can hear you now.
You need more cold cranking apps on your battery.
Yeah,
That's
for
the
real.
reason, probably. Reading your comments is none other than the 45th and the 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. What do we got here, Trump? I wasn't ready to go. We got Tucker saying good afternoon, everyone. Napkin Nate saying, what's happening? What a great follow-up to yesterday, says hates Minnesota. What, do we have no audio? Are we?
No, we do.
Oh, it's fixed? Oh, what did they miss? What was the audio that was missed?
It would have been you dogging on Kamala, probably.
Oh, okay. Well, they missed me dogging a Kamala.
It was
Unbelievable.
Very funny. It was very funny. He was
You had me on the mute. I didn't know you had a mute thing for me. Marty 1967 also in the comments. BD 71450. Well, Mary Kate. Sorry guys. Apparently I was muted. I can't believe it. I thought we were back to free speech under Trump.
Well, we heard Carrie, so that's the important part.
Yeah,
That was
well,
a
that's
beautiful
true.
song.
There's no way my voice is anywhere close to that.
It's getting there.
If you want to interrupt us anytime, hit that Rumble Rant button and we'll go to your comment. We're going to be talking about some pretty interesting stuff here today. First of all, we've got Walz dealt a blow in the courts. This was news that came out Friday afternoon. This is very fascinating. We're going to give you the down low on what's going on in the Minnesota legislature. The second topic we got to talk about is some of the executive actions that Trump took. He looked so baller yesterday, sitting at his desk, and answering questions from the media while he's signing these massive executive orders. Some of them good, some of them not so good. I got to be honest with you. I'm just generally positive about Trump's first day in office. However, I don't fully agree with everything he's done. I don't know how much I'm going to get in that today. We have plenty of time to talk about that. I want to be good. I want to talk about the good today. And then we'll talk about the bad. On his way out, if this guy couldn't have been worse, Joe Biden pardons Fauci. He pardons his family members. The interesting thing is the date he went back to on pardons for Fauci, which last I looked doesn't have any criminal complaint against him at this point. No, he's not being prosecuted for anything, and he's getting pardoned. Interesting stuff. Mm-hmm. And then apparently, according to the press, Musk did a Nazi salute, and I think the two guests in here don't agree with my take on this. So we might have a debate, and then we'll go into the post show. We're going to have two guests zooming in. One is former Rep. Jeremy Munson, who's got a hot take on House District 54A, something that I think you guys will be interested in, potential voters that didn't exist but somehow voted. This is interesting. And then live from the Capitol Rotunda, we should have Mega Jesse joining us today. So they'll get into that later on in the show.
Reporting from the front lines.
Yep, Razzle Dazzle. Dave's Right's in there. So once again, if you want to interrupt at the same time, hit that Rumble rant and we'll read your comment live on air. We're also brought to you by Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. If you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, give my good friend Warren a call at 612-419-7453. He's not only a great real estate agent, but he also sings in my church choir. If you're buying a home, give my good friends at John Galt Mortgage a chance at financing that home. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com. And by the way, they never miss a beat. They're always going to have the best memes of the day, and they did not miss on inauguration memes. I'll put it that way. I shared one on my Facebook page this morning. It was that Zuckerberg glance at Bezos' fiance.
Busted.
I mean, Bezos is like, I'm not the popular billionaire anymore, you know? How can I upstage Elon Musk? Well done, Jeff Bezos. Well done. Because I don't think anyone would have talked about him if it wasn't for his fiance basically wearing a bra top. And we're also brought to you by Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. All right, getting into the first story. An order came down Friday afternoon, and we kind of knew this. Dawson, pull up the A2. This was brought on by the Minnesota Voters Alliance, and the Republican Party joined this against Tim Walz. Now, who would ever guess when this thing was filed the catastrophe that would be at the Capitol? I mean, when this thing was filed, it was initially just, we're going to have a dynamic of a Democrat temporary minority because, you know, this gentleman cheated in 40B. He didn't live in there. A court found that he didn't have residency and is ineligible to take office. And then Tim Walz, who really doesn't care about the rule of law, as we knew from COVID, just decided, I'm going to say that there's a vacancy and I'm gonna issue a writ of election against what the law says. And we brought this up on the show. Honest to God, I mean, you're the lawyer in the room, but I feel like Jesse and I have lawyered this one to death. It was very clear that this guy lost an election challenge, and there is literally a provision in law that says an election challenge, and I'll read that in a second, what that is, but when a writ goes out, and Tim Walz ignored it, so that there was a very small time for Republicans to have a majority, and the courts found in our favor. And remember, this is the Supreme Court. These people are Walz and Dayton appointees. There's not a single Republican on the court in Minnesota. So his own Supreme Court essentially said, "You're whack, man. You're wrong on this one." So scroll down to the actual order here, last page, Dawson, and this is what they found, and then I'll get into the statute that they found he wasn't following. And by the way, just a layman could tell that he wasn't following it. The petition of Minnesota Voters Alliance, Greg Ryan, Chris Bakeman, and Republican Party of Minnesota is granted. The writ of special election for House District 40B issued on December 27, 2024 is quashed as having been issued prematurely. By the way, what a fine way of saying was issued illegally. Mm-hmm. It was issued illegally. Tim Walz did not follow law. Okay, it was prematurely. That's a nice, delicate way to hand your buddy who got you in office a blow, right? You know, you didn't really follow law, but it was just done prematurely. Number 3, respondents must take all steps necessary to cancel the special election for House District 40B that quashed writ set for January 28, 2025. So once again, Tim Walz wanting to make sure Democrats didn't have a minority that long. And remember, this is the whole reason we're in a catastrophe, a constitutional crisis at the Capitol. The Democrats have still not shown up to the Minnesota House. Secretary of State Steve Simon is trying to stop the Minnesota House from organizing, and Tim Walz is complicit in it. And it's all because the Democrats only have 66 members elect because one of their members cheated in an election, and he got caught cheating. You can't run in a district unless you establish residency for 6 months leading up to the election. And he didn't do it. And so he could not be placed as a member. All right, so number 4, any absentee ballots already cast or that are delivered or mailed to Ramsey County for the January 28th, 2025 special election for House District 40B are specific only to that now canceled election and must not be counted for any future special election for House District 40B. And 5, so as not to impair the orderly election process, this order is issued with an opinion to follow. Okay, that is dated January 17, 2025. This came up Friday afternoon. And another order came up Friday afternoon, which I am saddened to say the Becker County judge ruled in favor of Nicole Mitchell's motion to delay the trial until after the legislature takes place. So it doesn't look like we're going to have a trial, a first-degree burglary trial for Senator Mitchell. Looks like she gets to wait till May. And by the way, Gunnar, if you're going to ask me right now if the business is going to be settled in May, I'm going to say there's like a 1% chance.
Right.
They're going to have a special session in June, like clearly they are. Right. So Mitchell won't even stand trial probably until July.
Yeah.
And she'll probably be found guilty, by the way. It seems like it's overwhelming evidence. I don't know how much you got into that one. All right, so this is the order from the Supreme Court of Minnesota, a direct blow to Governor Walz. Now, let's go, Dawson, pull up the A3. This is the actual statute. And this is just clear as day. When he issued this thing, and you have to remember, he issued this on December 27th. We're talking about like a period where, people are like on vacation. One of the people, I know someone in the district that wanted to run for that district and was out of the country at the time. They had like a 1 or 2 day filing period. So like imagine you want to run for office and the governor gives you like a 1 day period to file for office, and then you can't be part in the and it just happens to be over the holiday breaks. I mean, he knew what he was doing was wrong. Well, look, number 4, subdivision 4, it says writ when vacancy results from election contest. And it says if a vacancy results from a successful election contest, the governor shall issue 22 days after the first day of the legislative session a writ calling for a special election unless the house in which the contest may be tried has passed a resolution which states that it will or will not review the court's determination of the contest. If the resolution states that the house will not review the court's determination, the writ shall be issued within 5 days of the passage of the resolution. Okay, here's the other interesting part of this whole dynamic. The Minnesota House organized and decided we're not going to review the court's decision, and so Governor Walz can issue a writ of election 5 days after the legislative start, which was December 14th was the first day of legislative session, meaning on, basically now he can issue the writ. You want to hear the interesting part about it is, if Governor Walz was to do that, then he's recognizing that the Minnesota House is organized and conducting business, and so he's not going to recognize that. So we aren't going to see Tim Walz issue a writ of special election until February 5th, 22 days after the legislature first gavelled in. And according to him, gavelled in and wasn't able to conduct business because they didn't have a quorum. Did I cover this whole thing well? I mean, it's crazy.
This is completely strange. What are the Dems doing? They're not even sitting. So what is their justification for that? Why are they not attending the meetings? Why are they not attending House?
Well, it's like a moving goalpost, and I'm going to bring on former Representative Jeremy Munson, who wants to talk about House District 54A. They're saying that's the whole holdup right now. Okay, they initially just said we had a power sharing agreement with the Republicans, and now they're going to take over as a majority power and not abide by that governing or that power sharing agreement. But it's like, of course the Republicans are going to do that. They're going to elect their own speaker because guess what? They have 67 eligible members. The Democrats have 66. And why is that? It's not like a death. It's not like some crazy thing. It's because they cheated. They literally got caught cheating.
Right.
So, if the Democrats participate in the first day, the first order of business is to have an election for speaker. And the Republicans are going to have 67 votes and the Democrats are going to have 66. That's what was going to happen. If you don't like it, it's your fault. And clearly from statute, the governor can't issue a writ of election until 22 days. I'm just so glad the Supreme Court at least has some decency in reading the damn law. Because I was even scared they weren't going to follow the damn law as clear a day as it is. And you know what? Actually, the trick that Tim Walz and the Democrats came up with, what they said was Curtis Johnson, that was the cheating member-elect.
Yep.
Okay, he said that he resigned his seat as representative-elect. So it's like there's a vacancy. So that's how they got around it. They go, well, there's a vacancy because of a resignation. But it's like, no. At that time, Jamie Becker Finn was still the state representative of 40B until the new legislature took place. If Governor Walz called a special election or special session, Jamie Becker Finn would be the representative from that district. There isn't a vacancy until the first day of legislature, hence why Subdivision 4 is even a thing.
Right.
He knows this. And so Governor Walz wasted our money, right? Because remember, now not only did he issue an election, that's a big thing. He just, all the wasted money printing ballots, election workers, because they already held a primary and they already sent out general election ballots. All that money wasted. I want to know how much that is. Is it $1 million? Hundreds of thousands? Whatever it is, I almost think Tim Walz should be paying for that because he knew he's breaking law. But not only that, he also now is using up government resources, the Attorney General's office, to represent him in court against this lawsuit that he knows he had no right of issuing. And this is Tim Walz. He doesn't give a crap about that. That's why we need Minnesota Doge. So there you go. A big blow to Governor Walz. And it seems to, do we have Jeremy joining us yet?
Yep.
Okay, so it all seems to come down, Gunnar, to the House District 54A, where Brad Tabke is the declared winner by a margin of 14 votes, when we know that 20 ballots were thrown in the trash can. And so the Democrats are now, and listen, if you just follow the talking points, and you just have to go back the last 3 weeks of shows, you know they've moved the target. You know, they were saying one thing 3 weeks ago and saying something completely different. Oh, by the way, before I bring Munson on here, do you want to hear the leader of the Minnesota Democrats? She was on TPT Almanac, and I think they tape on Friday afternoon. She was on there responding to lawsuit. Pull this up. This is hilarious. This is and TPT Almanac is the most milquetoast of all media. And they even laughed at her because this is how nuts she is. This is her responding to this lawsuit I just acknowledged.
There are 67 members in both caucuses that Curtis Johnson was not able to resign. I think what they ruled is he's still a member-elect, so we have returned to a tie.
Yeah, oh, okay.
There are 67 members.
What? She's crazy. He can't resign from his seat he wasn't eligible to take. You're insane. But they're like grasping at straws because they got nothing. The Democrats, they're freaking nuts. And by the way, as we get into this Trump segment, it's like, love or hate Trump, it just seems like we just got an adult back in the room. And I can't believe I'm saying Donald Trump's the adult here.
Right.
But what we just witnessed under the lunacy of the Biden administration, even up to the end, it's like, my God, this is the modern Democrat Party. Like, they have completely abandoned common sense. And
So
it's
what
not
are
like
the
the Republicans are all great, but by God, way better than them.
What are the chances that a Republican can take that seat? How close was the election?
It's almost certainly gonna be a Democrat.
Sure.
It's like a 65-35 district. But you don't know. I mean, look, the nutball that they actually endorsed.
Yeah.
Oh, that guy's interesting. He's openly queer, but he's married to a woman. Like, whoa, geez, that's a real healthy situation to be in.
Right.
Like, you can only imagine what he's going to be like up at the Capitol. We'll break that down. But he's irrelevant because guess what? There's no endorsed well, maybe that's still endorsed. I don't know. But there's no special election yet in House District 40B. And so you guys know the timeline. And then we're going to get into it in the 54A. The timeline is this election, this next guy won't be placed until March. What do you got, Dawson?
Are you in correspondence with Dale? He's blowing me up a little bit, saying
What's he saying?
Join his FaceTime, but
No, we're not doing it now.
You tell. I don't want to tell him.
It's the show. Jeez.
Dale scares me.
Does he
that's
scare
on
you?
Yeah.
All right, I'll text Dale.
Okay, thank you.
I just told him before the show, not until 2:30 p.m. your time.
I don't even know if he's watching. If you're watching right now, though, I hope you're enjoying it.
All right, let's bring on Munson here. This is former Representative Jeremy Munson, represented district kind of down south of Mankato. I was listening to you on El Travis. Apparently, you've gone through the new voter data file, and it doesn't sync up with the amount of votes that were cast, or at least the Secretary of State said was cast in House District 54A. Do I have that right?
Yeah, you do. Look, I want to add a couple things to your conversation that you were talking about the St. Paul seat. One of the things, so Walz violated it by calling it prematurely, but he also needs to give people enough time to file. You mentioned people being out of the country. Well, if you're in a minor party, you don't get ballot access by just paying a fine, paying a fee and signing up. You have to actually go out and collect 500 signatures door to door. Under law, he has to allow, I think it's 6 days at minimum, but should allow, 2 weeks or 3 weeks for that time period to happen. So,
and that's a good point, Munson, because actually it requires like a 5-day timeline alone, just from when the announcement of a special election's happening, because there's a process with the county auditor, which is administering the elections, and that wasn't followed. So there was actually, you're right, there's way more than just what was challenged, but of course what was challenged was so damn obvious. We have a Rumble rant, $5 Rumble rant from Fail Can. It says Munson for governor. I mean, you don't even know what he's going to say, failed candidate. And by the way, he's failed candidate. I don't know if that's the endorsement you want, Munson, but he paid for it. So there you go. Thanks for the Rumble rant, failed candidate.
Yeah. Hey, so what would be interesting is if Walz does call a writ for a special election in 2 weeks, and then he still doesn't allow the full 6 days. And so you could go back and invalidate the future election and the Senate special election that's occurring, where there was actually a vacancy because there was a death. That election did not have the proper 6-day notice period for minor party candidates to collect signatures to appear on the ballot. So that one could too be thrown out, which would mean the Senate would be in a power sharing agreement and a tie for another month and a half.
Right. And that wasn't challenged, and I don't know why, but I guess at some point you got to pick your battles. I don't know.
Well, if the purpose of this is politically to extend the Republicans' control, or throw sand in the gears to the Democrat machine, then that would be a great lawsuit to file on the Senate seat.
Well, of course, they could just do it by controlling the Minnesota House or locking up the Minnesota House. They don't even need the Senate, but fair point. So tell us about this 54A, because I would argue, as we get into this, Munson, that this also extends it. I mean, the Republicans right now have this ace card, right? Like they got control of House District 54A, and if Democrats are going to take this new seat in March, because it's almost a foregone conclusion they'll win, but you don't count your chickens before they hatch, but they win in March. Well, Democrats Democrats at this point aren't going to show up at all until that new person takes office. Well, then what's to stop the Republicans just saying, well, 54A isn't a seat anymore, and then they still have the 67 to 66 split. But you are actually making the argument that they have a real case here. That there's 96. Go ahead.
I think the case can be made to the members of the Republican House caucus to not seat Brad Tabke. If the 20 lost ballots alone isn't strong enough for them, because I know they went out and tried to find as many as they could and had them sign affidavits, which I think is a big violation of privacy. You're asking voters to tell you how they voted, and being in a court record. If you look at the number of ballots that were cast for in that House district, and you compare it to the Secretary of State's records showing how many registered voters are recorded to have sent in a ballot or cast a ballot in person in those precincts in that district, the numbers don't match. There's 96 additional ballots that were counted that don't have voter records matching that.
And what could explain that? Like, is there a logical explanation?
Yes, there's possibly a logical explanation. Back in 2004, there was a law by Republicans passed to protect victims of domestic abuse, so that they could basically mask their voter record so it wouldn't be public. So if you have a restraining order against someone, an ex-boyfriend, whatever, and you've moved to a different area, you don't want to announce where you live, because I can go out to the Secretary of State's website or go in person and pay a nominal fee and get statewide voter access records, everybody's name, phone number, address, and which election you voted in. And so if I want to find someone, I could go out and get that information and find out where someone lives. So in order to protect those people, Republicans passed a law called the Safe at Home Act, and it allows people to vote remotely or by absentee ballot and not have their voter record public. But in 2020, there were 747 people in that program. And if you divide it by the number of House districts, that's like 5. right?
Yeah.
5 House districts. So
Yeah, what are the odds? 96 people, which would be like 13% of that program, are all in one House district. That seems like not even possible.
Right. So statistically implausible. These little nuances don't really bubble up that much until you have a close election.
Right.
But if I was the loser in this election, I would say, show me the number of people that have registered voter records that you show voted, and I want to match them up with the number of ballots cast. And I'm using the words pretty carefully here, because if you go out to the Secretary of State's website and you look at the results in the tab key race and you add those numbers together, it doesn't equal the 23,000 ballots they said received, because a lot of people will, not a lot, but maybe 1,000 will go and vote for president and they don't vote down ballot. Or they vote for both Tabke and Paul, and that invalidates their vote in that race. So you want to look at the number of total ballots cast against the number of voters that the Secretary of State's records show voted in that within those precincts, within the boundaries of that House district, and these are the numbers that don't match. So 96 is a significant number. It should be enough. It should be enough evidence to cast doubt on whether this election is valid. And again, the House members should not seat him and call for a special election in that seat. And by the way, politically, Republicans would have an advantage in that seat in a special election because we do have a turnout in specials.
Yeah. We actually built a big data system, and the only reason we didn't uncover this is I think the new update came late last week, and we're just busy. We haven't actually got it. So we have to get the new data from the Secretary of State. Sounds like you did, or someone did it, and that's where the discrepancy came from. But we've noticed this discrepancy over the years. It just, to your point, it just doesn't really come into play when the margin's big. But in the case where the margin's 14 votes, it's everything.
Yeah, it does. It means everything. And it's weird. So most counties will report who voted in their election within a day or two, give the information to the Secretary of State. It's updated in the voter records that you can pull into your system. For Scott County, they made multiple updates over the past 2 months, but they just started updating them like at the end of December, or in the beginning of December. And then you heard probably from Pam Altendorf there was these 30 duplicate records. So it did for a couple of weeks show that 30 registered voters voted twice in Scott County. Those have been corrected. It went down to 6 and now it's 0. But there's still the discrepancy of the number of people that the Secretary of State said voted versus how many ballots they have counted in that race. So
I think we have a really unique opportunity. You tell me where I'm wrong here. Okay. The Constitution in Minnesota is very clear on this. The judge of who its members are is the Minnesota House. Okay?
Yes.
So, and by the way, I'm not pulling something out of my ass here. Brad Tapke himself argued this in court. We've pulled this up. We talked about last Thursday when the Democrats are going around going, the courts have decided Brad Tapke is the duly elected member in 54A. It's like, well, here's what Brad Tapke said on Monday through his lawyers to the court. It said, your advice is purely advisory. It's not a decision. It's purely advisory because the House is the ultimate determinant. They were kind of hedging their bet, right?
Yep.
And so
yeah, they knew they were going to have a tie. So if it went to the House, that it would be a tie and they couldn't refuse to seat him. But since then, since the House has been organized, they changed the rules of the House to say that you can't vote in your own determination of seating yourself.
Which kind of seems logical in that case. But okay, so this seems like a golden opportunity. If the Republican Party is really going to be the party of election integrity, okay, I think there needs to be a fair process here. I'm not sitting here telling you Brad Tapke should not be seated. Okay? And I'm not even saying Brad Tapke wasn't the winner. I'm also not saying he is the winner. We don't know. First of all, the 20 ballots, they don't even know with certainty those were the 20 ballots. They have voters that signed affidavits saying they voted that way, but they can't say with 100% certainty those were the ballots that were in the trash. Okay? So that alone says, hey, maybe this election should be recalled or should be redone, right? But this 96 cases, and these are only 2, and you said the third one was the duplicate votes, which seems like there's an answer. Maybe there's an answer. Maybe there's not an answer. Like, why does this keep popping up? But why don't we take this as an opportunity to actually investigate a damn election for once and bring in the evidence? Because maybe there's a logical side to it. Maybe for some reason there are 96 members in this program. And by the way, if that's the government explanation of why there's 96 vote discrepancy, how do we check that that's actually occurred, right? They could just say that. There should be some kind of way to audit that. At the federal government, maybe they go into a SCIF and they look at, classified information. Is there some way to do? But why don't we actually have a hearing and discover this? And if the evidence suggests that we can't determine the winner, or there's this 96 vote discrepancy, then I think we should have a damn new election. Where am I wrong on this?
Well, I was told by the people that put this data together that they shared it with, because I said, what does Jim Nash say? Because I think he's the lead on, or maybe the chair of the elections committee now. And they said that he kind of rejected it and didn't want to bring it up. And there was Blois Olson reported that there were potentially 7 Republicans that were going to vote to seat Brad Tabke. So that's a major concern too. So we need to, again, put pressure on the Republicans to not seat Brad Tabke if they want to keep this majority for 2 years.
Well,
that would be,
I would change what I would push back what you're saying. That's not the reason they should do it, because you shouldn't seat someone that was duly elected, right? Just because you want a majority. The problem is, I don't think we can discover that he's duly elected in this case. I think the 20 ballots alone is enough, but this 96 is concerning. If we could determine that he was the rightful winner of that election, majority aside, you have to seat somebody. But until we can do that, and we might not be able to do it, and that's why we should argue to not have this individual seated, Republicans need to get a freaking backbone and stand on something here, right? Especially when the stakes are a majority.
And especially if the math doesn't add up. So what you're saying is with these 96, I mean, the safe at home kind of rules out. That could account for, let's say, 10 at the most. What about newly registered voters? Could that account for it? And if that doesn't account for it, what does your gut tell you? Does your gut tell you that there was fraud in the mail-in process?
Well, there are a couple of other things that could occur that could change the numbers in this manner. If you voted in the middle of September, at the very first day of the early voting, you went and voted, and then early October, you moved to your downtown Minneapolis apartment, got a driver's license, had your voter record updated, that might you might lose some voters because of that. And in that vote should have been thrown out because you have to be in that district on election day if you want to vote early. But the Safe at Home program, my understanding from a staffer in the Senate told me that it has been expanded to include like police officers and people that don't want to be found by members of the public, and which I think might be an abuse of that program, right? It's not the original intent. And we shouldn't have thousands of people in there. So I don't know how we find out how many people are in that program, but we should have someone from both parties to be able to view that list of people. And even, I think you should even be able to canvass them to see if they voted, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we need to have integrity in our elections to restore faith in our elections, and through it, faith in government. And if you have this ultra secret list of people, and let's say there's 3,000 people in there, and find one race that's tight and just say they voted in that district, that's just not right.
Well, a lot of people think that's what's going on. In fact, even Trump yesterday in one of his inauguration events goes, this election was too big to rig. It's like, I think what you're saying might not be true, but I don't know, but I kind of do think it's true. You know what I'm saying? Like, Trump's big problem, and Joe Rogan's his appearance on Joe Rogan exposed this on Trump, is he can't perfectly articulate how they stole the election. And that's a real problem for Trump. But that doesn't mean they didn't steal the election, because a lot of us clear-headed, clear-minded people go, yeah, what the hell happened to those 10 million Biden supporters? Where did those people just disappear to in the 2024 election, right? Like, we kind of look at this thing and go, it was quite fishy. And when you really think about it, they didn't need to steal millions of votes. They didn't need to cheat by millions of votes. They needed to cheat by a factor of tens of thousands. And a pretty big operation, especially under the guise of safety during COVID, could have pulled that off in some of those swing states. But Trump has to prove it. And it's like, well, one of the problems that we had, and this is a false talking point by the left, is Trump lost every court case on the election integrity. It's like, no, what the courts ruled was they didn't have standing. They didn't actually, there was no court that went and looked at all the data, and we didn't have any big hearings or anything like that looking into this data, or at least it wasn't publicized. It's like here the Republicans in Minnesota have a great opportunity to actually put an election under a microscope. And I can't think of a better person to put under a microscope than that clown Brad Tapke. Wouldn't that be wonderful? But like literally, you have a golden opportunity. Your base wants you to do this. Let's do it. Let's look at this election. I am not telling the members of the Republican House to vote to not seat Brad Tapke, but you better not be telling Blois Olson or any other reporter that you're going to seat him until you see the evidence, because it certainly seems like with 20 missing ballots and 96 discrepancy between the votes cast and the people that are voting in that district, we have a lot to look into. So why would you give this guy a seat unless this stuff's resolved? And by the way, the only person they're taking the word of advice from is the Secretary of State, who also doesn't believe you guys have a quorum and shouldn't be organized.
Right. And another program like the Safe at Home program that could be abused in this manner is this new law that allows people to vote without having a residence, right? That would allow homeless people to vote, and they just describe where they live, that they're probably not there during the election day. Like that program could be significant. You could bring in a busload of people to go and, register to vote and vote the same day and not have an ID or anything and just claim they vote under they live under the bridge at the moment. That could be easily abused.
Yeah, and we know all the homeless people are very, motivated voters. Like, come on, that's such a ridiculous program, right? All right, we'll stay on top of this story. Thanks very much for joining us, Munson, and I guess we'll have you back if we get any more developments on this. But I think that's a reasonable call. They should at least look into this stuff.
Yep, thanks for having me on.
Take care. All right, let's go to some comments here. We got Donald Trump, the 45th and 47th president, reading your comments. We got Becky Hack. What does she have to say? Becky Hack, wonderful, lovely woman, Becky Hack. In order to seat him, they have to swear him in, right? Actually, that's a really good question. All right, you're a lawyer, Gunnar.
I have all the answers.
Yeah, all the answers, right?
Yep.
Okay, so when is a representative? The state statute says that the people claiming to be members show up and present their election certificate and then take the oath of office. Well, the Democrats have never done that this legislative session, but they're getting paid. By the way, we found out they've already received their first paycheck and they haven't showed up. So when do they become a member? They had a mass swearing in ceremony the Sunday before the legislature took place, but it was very clear from Minnesota law, you're supposed to attend the first day. It says shall attend, and you present your certificate and swear in. They didn't do that. Are they members?
I mean, they're going to argue yes, obviously, and all of this is just administrative BS. But technically, no. I mean, if they're not present, they didn't swear in, then what are they doing? They're not seated. It's a circus.
I think it's one of the nation's most interesting circuses ever. I got to reach back out. It's interesting. On Thursday's show, we learned about Colton Moore, the Georgia senator who was basically arrested for trying to attend Brian Kemp's joint session, a State of a State address in Georgia. He's arrested because he spoke on the Senate floor against a former Speaker of the House who was being honored. And the speaker of the current speaker of the Georgia House didn't like it. And so he basically forbid him from coming in the chambers. But he was there on legislative duty. So far, an update to that story, the Georgia speaker basically changed the policy and now will allow Senator Colton Moore to attend joint sessions on the floor. And he doesn't apologize. He's got a real interesting way of saying it, but basically he's eating crow on that because he was in the wrong on that one big time. I wanted to have Colton Moore on this show today, and maybe we'll reach out on Thursday. But I was like, oh my God, that seems like ancient, right? Can you believe, Dawson, that was only on Thursday? That seems like not even a story anymore.
Yeah, news moves so fast right now, it's impossible to keep up.
100%. I mean, Trump had said something apparently about the I don't know if it's an executive order, I didn't find it, but about the drones, like looking to those drones on the eastern seaboard. It's like, drones? So last year. Like, what is he even talking about drones? We don't even care about the alleged E8 special forces soldier that blew himself up in a Tesla truck. I mean, and you could see in the video camera he's turning his head, but apparently he had shot it off with a Desert Eagle, so you could see him turning his head before the thing blows up. Like, that seems really questionable. That whole story.
The United Healthcare thing.
United Healthcare is, well, that was way long ago. That was the story for a week. Oh my God. Yeah, this news cycle is insane. All right, so what took over the headlines, obviously, yesterday was Donald Trump's inauguration. This segment's brought to you by Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty, a guy who's very happy that Donald Trump took office. If you're looking for a home, or you want to buy a home, you want to sell a home, you can call Warren at 612-419-7453. Trump did a lot of things yesterday, okay? I told myself I was actually up in Ely. It's like negative 25 when I got up, and even colder with the wind chill, visiting some friends. And I had just said, I don't really care about speeches and all that kind of stuff. But then I ended up on the drive home. I had to watch it, I had to see it. And Trump did a good job just laying out, without saying Biden and Kamala, basically just completely demolishing the last 4 years, which is good because those.
Well, I'm glad that Biden is kind of senile because he just stood there kind of smiling. He sat there smiling and clapping a little bit while Trump just trashed him. But, part of it too wasn't really a trashing. I mean, when he's correct in his statements, when he's saying there's an emergency at the southern border, that is a true statement to make. And while it might be kind of degrading to the person sitting next to you, it's a true statement and it had to be made. So right. I'm proud of what he did yesterday. Happy to go over his executive orders.
Speech was good. And to me, speeches are speeches. So what? Show me action. So then Trump literally leaves. And by the way, he's in the rotunda, which I still don't understand what happened. But maybe what happened was it was cold and Trump did worry about his supporters and also worried that people wouldn't come and it would look bad. So he moved in the rotunda. Turned out to be actually really nice that they moved to the rotunda. Yeah. It was very smooth. And other than the Carrie Underwood mishap, it was, I think, an awesome show. So, so then he goes and he leaves and he goes down to a different part of the Capitol. I'm not an expert on the U.S. Capitol building, okay? I wasn't a January 6er. So, so he goes to another portion, and apparently he gives a speech just about as long down there to a bunch of his supporters.
Right.
And I only caught that at the end. Then he does the presidential parade, which is considered when he actually goes to is it the Capital One Arena or something like that? Whatever the big arena is in D.C. in front of his biggest supporters, and he goes there and does another big long speech. So then it's like, wow, that's quite a day. You're just going to go to the balls and, celebrate. And no, he goes to the Oval Office and sits behind the desk and literally has the White House press there firing questions as he is signing monumental executive orders. So on day one, if there was something that it's got to be said about action on Donald Trump's part, he signs, and I don't even know how many executive orders. We were just talking about before the show started. There's 5 pages of them on the White House site, but I don't believe they're all up there right now.
Yeah,
okay?
Sure. Yeah.
So I want to cover a couple, but just to give you a taste of what it was like if you hadn't seen this, we have
Jesse is on right now. Yep.
We got Jesse from Washington, D.C.
Let's do it.
Well, let's hold off on the executive orders. Let's hear from one of the largest Trump supporters out there, MAGA Jesse. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I don't know if you can see it behind me. I got the Capitol building right behind me there.
Yes.
Dale and I just wrapped up a tour of Congress from an Idaho congressman, so we had a great time being able to go underground, see everything that's going on in the belly of the beast here in Washington, D.C., learning a lot of good stuff, seeing some good stuff as well. And we are in the golden age of America right now. That's why I got my gold MAGA hat on. And it is incredible to be in Washington, D.C. for President Trump's inauguration. I'm excited to be a part of it here.
All right. And you got Dale with you? What's Dale wearing?
You know, he's still in the Longworth office building. He's still chatting it up. He was in another Congress member's office. So
is he wearing the rhino jacket?
Not in the rhino jacket,
Okay.
no. I think he's wearing a Constitution tie, so that's a good reminder for these crooks out here in D.C.
There you go. Okay, so MAGA Jesse, I got to ask, where were you yesterday? I mean, you were initially supposed to be in attendance out on the Capitol lawn, but obviously that didn't take place, or did it take place? And we're just not aware of it. Where were you yesterday?
Yeah, so I went to a watch party that was hosted by the MNGOP and 4 other state GOP parties. So there was Tennessee, South Carolina, I think North Dakota, and 1 other. So there was making some good connections out here as well with some other states and lots of other patriots. I mean, it's incredible what's going on. I tried to get into the Trump rally, and that was absolutely nuts. The streets were packed, and so wasn't able to get into that one. Didn't even attempt to get into the inauguration.
There were empty seats at that rally, so I don't know why that ended up happening.
That's not true. I doubt it.
No,
Because,
I mean I could see it. I could see it from the view they were showing, and there's a lot of space on the floor. So you're saying there was long lines, large crowds outside of it, so they were restricting people's access, or what happened?
There were tens of thousands of people still outside.
Oh,
Absolutely,
unbelievable.
we were outside, and people were watching on a jumbotron outside the arena. So, there was tens of thousands of people still outside, if not more.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was a security thing then, not allowing them in, because I mean, you could definitely see there was space. I'm not trying to be a hater here, Jesse. I clearly he could have filled an arena, especially on inauguration day. But it was interesting to me. I'm like,
we need a bigger arena.
Oh, clearly.
I think we need a bigger arena here, and I understand why it went down like it is. I think that it's purely for safety concerns, and it's more important to me that Trump takes office than us witnessing a speech. So whatever keeps him safe, and he's got to make our country great again. He's got to stay alive to do so.
Are you saying safety? Oh, safety. Oh, okay. So I was gonna say safety concerns because of cold weather injuries. Or are you saying because there's a unique threat to Donald Trump?
Yeah, at least as a Minnesotan, it doesn't seem too cold out here for me. But I think that it's much more. There's concerns that I've seen Dan Bongino saying with Secret Service and safety concerns around the inauguration. So I think that this was the best move to keep Trump safe.
Well, there's
Jesse?
something that's interesting that I've seen is the motorcade that picked up Trump, I think Sunday. They had these look like jamming devices on the top. I'd never seen these things on a motorcade. And to me, it's like, well, are these like drone jamming devices?
Sure.
And if that's the case, is it because there's some unique threat to Donald Trump? I mean, the guy's only been basically survived 2 assassination attempts, which, by the way, you mentioned one of them at the inauguration, which is interesting.
Yeah. Jesse, looking good, sir. I love your tie.
I
Jake's
like your
point.
tattoo, Gunnar.
Thank you,
We're
sir.
in the same American spirit here.
It's a great day. It truly is a great day for America. And
Absolutely.
it's not just the patriotic spirit. It's that sense of pride that I feel has been renewed and is in the limelight. And to that point, Jesse, any counter protests, any sad Democrats walking around? Are the streets filled with Democrat tears? What are you seeing on the streets?
Honestly, no. You'd be surprised, but I have not seen that many protesters, and I've been walking the streets. I've been walking miles and miles and miles of Washington, D.C., and you barely see any. It's pretty incredible. There's some here and there, if there are any, it's usually over Palestine. But there's definitely the anti-Trump lunatics that are out there, some of them going crazy over TikTok and whatnot. But for the most part, it's been patriots walking down these streets.
Awesome.
It's not these leftists. And, you can tell pretty quickly that it's MAGA has taken over Washington, D.C. just by the looks of it. And, there's some staffers and whatnot that you can see. There's people who just live here that are not happy with it. But MAGA has definitely taken over Washington, D.C. And all you had to do was see what the streets looked like on Inauguration Day or the day of the rally to see that we outnumbered them.
Jesse, go ahead. Sorry.
Just like January 6th, the FBI let you into the Capitol. What was the tour of the Capitol like, Jesse?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a little bit limited because Congress is in session right now. So there was several things we weren't able to get to, but we got to walk onto the rotunda. We were able to see where Trump spoke yesterday during the inauguration. We got to go underground into the tunnels in between the offices and the Capitol building. So we got to see several interesting things. And obviously, there's tons of artwork and statues and plenty of historical cool things that to see in the Capitol. We got to go inside the old Supreme Court building,
Awesome.
the old Supreme Court room, and see all the busts there. So, yeah, there's a good picture of Dale and I outside that thing, so I'll have to send it to you guys.
Please do.
What is your plan for the rest of the afternoon out there in D.C.?
We'll see. You know, I'm not sure yet. You know, there's a couple events going on, so we'll see. Keeping an open mind here.
Okay, I would like to see if could you guys come back 15, 20 minutes, maybe if Dale's available, but in our post show, would you be available to come back in about 15, 20 minutes, Jesse?
I can come back I can come back in 15 minutes.
I got a lot more I want to talk to you about, and I want the audience to be part of it. So if people want to see and have some more specific questions for Jesse, because it's kind of cool to see what's going on in D.C., you can be a member of our post show by being a exclusive member of the Truth Hurts community. You can go to truthhurtsnews.com and click on Join Me, get your free locals accounts, $8 a month or $88 a year. You get a month off if you join. Otherwise, you could just click on Join on Rumble if you're watching this on Rumble. Jesse, we'll see you in about 15, 20 minutes.
All right, sounds good.
Stay warm.
Take care. I don't even feel like you need to say that to Jesse. I mean, the guy's from northern Minnesota.
He's riding high too on all that enthusiasm. Good for him.
Right. Well, so Trump then ends up. This was probably what I found to be the most interesting thing. So once again, he's in the Oval Office. He is signing executive orders. He's got a staff member presenting to him, telling him, I mean, just straight up like a business guy, and then fielding questions. No guiding the media what they can ask him. Just any question that's popping up. And so this is my favorite one is the guy hands him one and Trump asks him, well, what is this one? This is the B1, Dawson. This is the United States getting out of the World Health Organization. If I couldn't be happier about that one, go ahead and play it. We'll need some volume. It's all about the volume on this one. By the way, this is on my X account, so if you want to watch it.
What is this one?
Withdrawing from the World Health Organization, sir?
Ooh, that's a big one.
From
What
the
is this one?
Withdrawing from
Ooh, that's a great one. By the way, and it doesn't really show the Capitol Press. If you go back to my X account, there's actually a good photo up there. I should have thought of this one ahead of time. It shows them at the desk. Scroll down. Keep scrolling down. Keep scrolling down. Right there. There it is. That's the Capitol Press, or sorry, the White House Press, right at his desk as he's signing all these things. So, the removal of the United States from WHO would be monumental savings for us, for what I would say is not worth any money to us, especially when they can fumble a pandemic. Like, what's the point of them if they don't even get a pandemic right? Looks like we got a Rumble rant. Go ahead, Donald Trump. Razzle Dazzle says, we will want to know how much time Jesse spent with our new image OP bar chair out there. How's my Trump impression, by the way?
It's good. It's not as good as my son's. His is like spot on. I'll record it sometime and we'll play it live on air, but it's good. It's getting really good. Yep.
It's getting better.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, that is a good question. We'll ask that in the post show. If you want to be a premium subscriber of Truth Hurts News, go to truthhurtsnews.com and click on Join Us. That's a good way to join us, and we'll be there in the post show after this is done. All right, so then the one that's most controversial, and I don't know how I totally feel about this. Maybe this would be a good discussion, Gunnar. He pardons pretty much all the J6ers, which is 1,500 plus. Go ahead and pull this up. It's a B2, Dawson. This is a executive order granting pardons and commutation sentences for certain offenses related to the events at or near the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. It lists commuted sentences, and I think there's like 15 people there. And then it grants a full, complete, and unconditional pardon to all other individuals convicted of offenses related to events that occurred at or near the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. Does that mean like somebody that was like assaulting someone outside the Capitol or some totally unrelated crime is commuted? How did they get around that one legally? At or around the Capitol? Oh, I guess events related to, or wait, offenses related to events that occurred at, or well, that's a weird way to put it. Well, anyhow, long story short.
Well, even some people I think were found guilty. I think like Owen Schroyer and others weren't even there. They weren't even present. So,
well,
that makes sense.
is it Enrico? What's Enrico's last name? The one that supposedly was the mastermind, got the largest sentence, 20 some years.
Yeah,
he wasn't even that.
And he was released yesterday.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, actually, I heard that's disputed.
Oh, was he not released?
Yeah, it said he's still on record as being in prison.
Sure.
But family said he wasn't. I don't know. Well, you know, like, so I'm a little torn on this one. So to me, it's like, yes, there are a lot of bad people, there are a lot of good people that were unfairly targeted by their government. And they did something, I mean, they were welcome in. There's a Minnesota woman who we kind of know who was being prosecuted. And I think she had to take a plea deal. And she's being prosecuted for whatever the obstruction of government proceedings, whatever they were throwing at her. And you can see video of her clearly saying, do not go in the building. This is not us. These are not our people. Right?
Right.
And then she gets shoved into the building and is getting prosecuted once she's in the building. And it's like, what? Like, how is that possible? And clearly, this is a targeting of Donald Trump, is you find a jurisdiction that's sympathetic to, you know, the narrative, and you could probably find anyone guilty. Show me the man, I'll show you the crime.
Right.
And so there's a ton of people that definitely, I believe, need to be pardoned, and the movement is behind. But there are also people that assaulted police officers at the Capitol.
Right.
And from my understanding, this is a blanket pardon.
Yep, that's what my understanding is too.
Okay. But here's my other side of that. What if you were in that position because government actors, the deep state, the FBI, instigated it?
Well, I'd say you're a conspiracy theorist, Jake.
Well, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. We know now that FBI was on the ground.
Well,
they were instigating it.
Well, I think the smoking.
I kept joking with people that I know going to the inauguration. I know so many people that are out in D.C. right now, and I go, careful.
Right.
Don't be entrapped.
Right.
That's why I don't want to go to Washington, D.C. I don't want to be entrapped by their government.
I think the smoking gun there is the FBI pipe bombs that were planted. I mean, the FBI planted pipe bombs outside of the DNC that were the exact same pipe bombs that were used in FBI training. Mm-hmm. So they were duds. They didn't go off. There wasn't much hullabaloo about it afterwards. But of course, during it was, hysterical. Look at what happened. Trump himself said that he requested National Guard, which was turned down by Nancy Pelosi, whose daughter just so happened to be shooting a documentary that day. Absolutely insane. I think obviously, if there's a case, I think
that was a coincidence that her daughter was.
It could be. Sure, it could be. Yep, for sure. There's maybe some coincidences that day, but I think there's ample evidence to demonstrate the FBI was behind that. They're not being transparent with how many agents they had being agent provocateurs of the day.
Congressional Republicans uncovered that they actually got an admission that they were there.
That there were some, that they were there, but not how many.
Which they wouldn't even admit to back under the Biden administration.
Right. So I think that most folks should be pardoned, but not the FBI instigators.
Yeah, that's fair, but they haven't even been prosecuted.
Right,
not a single FBI member has been prosecuted
they ought to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And nor has Ray Epps, right?
Right.
Yeah, Ray Epps is probably not happy about that mass pardoning. So I guess that, to me, is the other side of it. It's like, well, if this was a big entrapment by our own government, which really, this is one I really believe in, guys. Like, literally, they wanted to destroy Donald Trump. They wanted to destroy well, this is the obvious reason why. Look what just happened yesterday. Not only Donald Trump got reelected and took office, he won the popular vote. He won by a monstrous amount, and it's rejuvenating this drive of the MAGA movement, which, by the way, on this show, we find to be very pure and very good. I'll find criticisms of Donald Trump on some policies, but MAGA is a wonderful movement. We love MAGA. It's why we got MAGA Jesse on this show. It's a beautiful, wonderful, organic movement. And they don't want that in the government, to the point where this isn't even speculation. Like, Biden's most famous speech in his time as president is that time in Philadelphia, the red ominous background where he's saying the largest threat to democracy is MAGA extremist. So listen, the government wanted to stop the MAGA movement, and they did that. They did that with intent, in my opinion, on January 6th. And so if you look through that lens, which I'm sure Donald Trump looks at it that way, yeah, mass pardon couldn't be a bigger FU to the deep state.
Well, another way to create a great distraction from the election certification that was happening on that day was to stage a riot outside.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and then turn the narrative and turn the people against it.
Exactly.
And we saw this in Minnesota, the political. There are still Republicans that didn't vote for Donald Trump. That it was January 6th is the reason being. And I've talked to people, I talked to even Democrats too on this, and it's like there are certain people that I think are really good individuals that are clear thinking. And the reason that they are still believing Donald Trump, these lies about Donald Trump, including like the good guys on both sides, that lie that's very discredited, is because they probably get their media from one major source.
Right.
And I was just at a friend's house, and they basically, differ on views on me on, well, I don't know how much they differ on views, but they differ on Donald Trump. And they basically get their news mostly from NPR.
Right.
And they were like, well, where should people get news? I'm like, there's no one source. You can't just go to Fox News. You can't just go to Newsmax. You can't just go one place. You got to get it from everywhere. You have to go through, and that most people can't do that. I understand it's tough, right? But it's a really problematic, and well, that's what this show's about. I'll just put it that way. We're not taking only one news source. We'd be so discredited if we only went to one news source. Most people, at least an older voter, will take one news source, and then you wonder why you have a certain narrative about Donald Trump, because it was concerted effort to make sure that you believe Donald Trump was a bad guy from day one.
It's Hollywood propaganda.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's clean and perfect, and it is sad. But when you look at things like J6, what is it? What specific instance is it that wakes people up? Is it Russiagate? That was a hoax. Is it J6?
Yeah, I mean,
it's BS.
Some people just...
The origins of COVID. I mean, something's got to bite.
We can't be bothered on that one.
Right.
No, who cares about where it came from?
Right. And I feel bad for folks. I mean, if you've got a busy life and you just want to tune out and you want to turn on the TV to a trusted source just for a little bit, look, that's excusable. I kind of understand that. And I don't go after the people who regurgitate that propaganda. I go after the source, which in this case, if you're listening to NPR, it's the state you're getting your information from.
Billy Tutu says boomers, and I know Billy Tutu is almost in that boomer category. He says boomers are generally idiots. Change my mind. Well, I think Billy Tutu's on the higher end of the Gen Xers, so he can say that. Gregory Reno, 29. 4 years is too long even for hitting a police officer. Even the worst Trump supporters from J6 have served more than enough time. It's almost like, in many regards, like wartime. I'm thinking on the fly here, but like, how much do you hold? Let's say you are a veteran of a war. How much do you hold the soldiers, the guy on the ground that you fought against, accountable for the actions of their leaders? You see what I'm saying? Like,
right.
So J6 was like, there are people on the ground, and they're probably good Capitol Police, and there's good patriots, and they interact, right? But there's a bigger game over them that's being played. And it's like that in war. It's like you might be fighting and you might be killing each other, right? But you're just part of this bigger game. It's generally why I'm against war a lot these days. And we probably all don't disagree that much. We're just following these stupid leaders that are doing something. And in the end of the day, like, how much resentment do you have for the guy on the ground, maybe a guy that even shot at you at war, when it really was, this guy didn't want to be there. He might have been conscripted to join the military because of what their leaders did. You see what I'm saying? Like, if there's a higher game being played, maybe, just maybe, the discretions of the people on the ground, the low level, the pawns, so to speak, in this game, really shouldn't be blamed.
100%. And if you look at the conditions that were created and manufactured by, I would say, the State Department on that day, can you excuse people acting in the heat of the moment? So if you've got 10 people that are invited into the Capitol one of the guys is an FBI and he pushes past a cop and then he grabs you and your girlfriend or
Right.
something, you know,
Fair
are you going to
point.
push him back or something? Probably.
That's a good
That's
point.
the heat of the moment. And who's responsible for that? I'm going to say the state.
Yes, yeah, the people playing the game at the higher level. What were you
Right.
gonna say, Dawson?
Well, I was asking, are you relating this to the thing about the wars and following your leaders? Are you relating that to January 6th?
I'm
Was
just
that
trying to
what you-
find an analogy that exists, meaning that in this case, my belief is that there's a higher game being played, and that higher game is the deep state. And I really do believe, whether it was directly or just fell this way naturally, but the media was also complicit in there because they were steering a narrative.
Yep.
And that was because they wanted to kill the MAGA movement, and that was a great opportunity, and it definitely steered public opinion.
Yeah.
And the more we've learned since that day is that that the FBI was on the ground. These people were instigating. Ray Epps, to me, is still, there's no explanation of Ray Epps. There's still no explanation why CBS did a puff piece on Ray Epps, and all of a sudden this guy's like some hero that's basically Trump is destroying his life, even though this was the guy that was seen on multiple camera angles, and we showed it on the show, saying, let's go into the Capitol. And he's at the initial breach point. So it's like, when you look at all this stuff, it's like there's a higher game being played. And it's like the pawns in here, the common guy, I guess in some regards, I have some sympathy for him, even though the act of violence generally should be condemned. But you see what I'm saying?
I think that people are responsible for their own actions. Just that's the end of it. Now, when it comes
True,
to,
and that's why I would have said, and that's why some people were smart enough to say, I'm not going into the
Yeah,
Capitol.
and that was the right
Some
thing
people
to
are
do.
smart seeing what was going on, because you're right.
I mean, like,
But then they're getting way over prosecuted as well, and that's the other thing, and that's the sympathy that we have. We have a Kathleen H. Run. I don't know if
I don't know how
that's how
to
you pronounce it. I think she's new. I haven't seen her in the comments before. Didn't the J6 committee destroy evidence? And that's a fair point too. But they've all been pardoned, so it doesn't matter. Biden pardoned them on the way out. Sorry, what were you gonna say, Dustin?
no, ultimately that's the end all for me. Like, you're responsible for your own actions. Now, when it comes to, like, did Trump instigate it? I don't think that there's, like, fantastic evidence of that, but he should, if he wasn't instigating it, he should be disavowing the people that were assaulting police officers, that were breaking in windows and stuff. And I think that he has. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
Yeah, and that's kind of what I would have liked to see, is maybe a little bit more nuance to the pardons instead of blank pardon. But once
Right.
again, you got to remember, Trump's playing a much higher level.
Right.
If you're playing at that level, why not blanket pardon if this thing was all meant? Do you see it that way, Dawson? I mean, you don't think like us, but I mean, can you see that? Do you think that's at least a pretty high probability that J6 was a concerted effort to kill the MAGA movement and Donald Trump's future?
I think that January 6th was just probably the worst mishandled thing that Trump did in office, or just out of office, or whatever you want to call it. Because, like, the second that stuff was happening, he should have stopped whatever speech he's given and be like, hey, quit it, get out of there. That's not what we're about. And then none of
Okay,
this
but you
would
didn't
happen.
answer my question there. I'm asking, do you believe
I don't think it
that
was
there's a
a-
high probability, or a probability that's beyond 10%, that that's what was happening? It was basically parts of our government trying to kill a movement by basically instigating riots.
No.
By the
not
way,
really.
I believe this happens also on the left, just so you know. I think that they instigate things, protests, like Black Lives Matter.
And they assassinate leaders on the left. I mean,
Right.
MLK. I mean, I think it's incredibly offensive. The federal government has a tendency to do this. Anytime they execute someone, they'll name a federal building or something after them. They kill MLK and then
Do you know
give
about
them
that?
a holiday.
Do you know about
In
what the
Vegas,
FBI
we
did?
were on the Patrick Tillman Bridge, who famously was murdered in Afghanistan
Well,
by friendly
You
fire.
think he was
and then
murdered? I mean, it looked like it was definitely
it sounds like they intentionally set him up.
They definitely,
Because he was the
covered
famous
up.
NFL star who went to Afghanistan and then began reporting, hey, this isn't what the bill of goods that we were sold here. This is a little shadier. And then shortly thereafter was killed in friendly fire. His parents think it was a setup.
Well, they definitely did not get the answers, and I feel
Right.
so bad for him because
Right.
Pat Tillman's a hero, right?
Right,
Like, that guy,
exactly.
Like, listen, I was also in the military at that point. In fact, I would have been in the military before Pat Tillman, but I joined the military because I didn't have a good way to pay for college. Pat Tillman not only had already completed college at a high level, he was at an NFL salary, and he was good.
Right.
He was a starter with Arizona Cardinals, I believe.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't give up that much. I mean, we all give up something, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
he gave up quite a bit, and then joined the Army Rangers and got deployed to Afghanistan. Well, that's an easy path. Like, God. So, yeah, his family didn't get answers. Do you know what the FBI did on Martin Luther King Jr.?
I have not studied it at all.
It's really interesting, and it always comes up every Martin Luther King Day because the FBI does a tweet recognizing Martin Luther King Day, and now it gets community noted. And it talks about how the FBI literally they had an operation against MLK.
They're spying on him.
They were spying on him and knew, because he was not a faithful man to his wife, apparently. And they had the evidence, and they were trying to blackmail Martin Luther King because they didn't want the civil rights leader from getting prominence. And this goes obviously back to the 60s.
Yep.
They basically blackmailed a leader of a movement. That's our FBI, and this isn't like speculation. This isn't conspiracy. That literally happened. So
When it comes to answer your question, I don't.
Phil candidate, that's fake news. She says Jake was a second string tackle for the Woodbury Bears. Military was a great option. Fake news. I didn't go to Woodbury High. That's fake news. On Alaska High.
When it
And linebacker, by the way.
when
Nice
it comes
try, Phil
to
candidate.
when it comes to stuff like that gets labeled as conspiracies, I typically lean very hard into whatever the simplest answer is most likely what it is. And so January 6th, a lot of frustrated people, a lot of angry people, a lot of people who didn't know what was going on break into
But why is the FBI on the ground? You understand that is
in Washington D.C.
Yes. Why is the FBI part of the crowd at a rally in front of the Capitol? What's the purpose of them being there? By the way, they will say they don't disclose sources, so they won't tell you why they're on the ground. But why are they on the ground?
I would hope that they're on the ground to try and protect people and try not to.
The
like, try to
FBI?
keep
What?
the peace.
That's not
Yeah.
the mission of the FBI. To protect people? That's not it.
What's the mission of the FBI?
They're investigative. Like they're not on the ground. Like that would be a mission of like local cops or Capitol
I guess
Police.
so. And cops were there to do that too.
Right. But why is the FBI there? Why is the federal government, a law enforcement of the federal government, in plain clothes, hiding amongst the masses?
Well,
you have to ask that question, and there's no logical explanation of that.
Is there any proof that there were federal agents?
No, they've had to admit it to it. So
They've had to admit to it. Yeah, at first because.
And by the way, we knew it anyhow because they're not in mission. And what was it? Ted Cruz or Holly? Someone, I thought it was a senator, that asked them point blank, "Did you have FBI agents on the ground?" And they would not answer that question to a senator.
Right. Was the moment where I think everyone knew the FBI had something to hide.
But now they have.
Yeah. So once the Republicans took over the U.S. House, they had an oversight committee Jim Jordan is in charge of, and so they investigated things like COVID, which, once again, their investigation found out a lot of the things that we said were right, although we already knew that. Like, so it basically just put in the congressional record. But they also got to the bottom of FBI on the grounds of the Capitol. I could look it up, Dawson, but just take my word for it.
I mean,
so they've actually found evidence, or at least the FBI had to admit to them having people on the ground on January 6th. And it's like, what the hell? It's very problematic for a federal law enforcement agency to have plainclothes agents in and amongst a protest amongst the people.
Yeah.
It's even more problematic, and we got way off topic here, so let me get back on topic. One of the things that Donald Trump did in these executive orders was basically state that the federal government, and he controls the executive branch, cannot take away people's First Amendment rights, which to me is like the most pointless executive order. But it goes without saying that this was heavily abused under the Biden administration. We know this. We know this so recently as Mark Zuckerberg on Joe Rogan admitting that the Facebook, which didn't censor political speech, censored political speech because of the Joe Biden administration. We talked about this last week on the show, and to the point where they were whining and complaining and basically yelling. I think it was the term yelling. That's what Zuckerberg said at his employees for not immediately silencing speech on their platform. We know this at Action for Liberty very well because they literally wiped off the Facebook page. They just got rid of it.
What is that going to mean for our posts and the algorithms? I mean, Mark and I, whenever we post something, we can tell. I mean, he'll post a silly meme and there's 200 plus likes, and then we'll post like something heavy hitting to tune into our show tomorrow night, and only he and I like it.
I know, it's crazy.
It's crazy how that happens.
I get that on
hope
Twitter
that changes.
too.
Yeah.
Like, look at this. I'm fairly new to using X again. I had that account since 2013. Yeah, it's the same way as me. It's just like this. So I don't know if that's it's an algorithm problem, maybe.
For sure.
But you know what? I think actually, Gunnar, obviously Zuckerberg does not get a pass on what they did to speech.
Yeah.
And neither does the previous owners of Twitter. But sometimes I think the algorithms are skewed to, you better be on this platform all the time. And you see this on Twitter. People they live on Twitter. Right. And one of those people is Elon Musk for some reason. I don't know how that guy does it, but it's like, that's bad. You should, if you're just rewarding people who are on it nonstop,
right.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah.
Because I know it's like my tweets would be dead because I'm like a normal person, and over the weekend, I'm doing normal stuff. I don't want to tweet over the weekend. And so I started doing that, and I've noticed I don't come back on Monday and have this problem. It's like, well, so you're just trying to encourage people to always be on your platform all the time. Well, that's not healthy.
Right.
All right, so let's get to B4, Dawson. This is B4. This is page 4 of the executive orders by Trump, and this is probably, I would say, probably one of the better.
Also, we do have Jesse back on again.
Oh, we do?
Yes.
Okay, we're just gonna have to hold off on Jesse. You know what? Let me tell Jesse.
Yeah, I think he can hear you right now.
Jesse, we'll be like 10 minutes and we'll be in the post show if you don't want to be just waiting in the queue. I don't want to keep you waiting that long. So, just 10 minutes we'll be in the post show if you want to. If you want to sign
I don't know
off
if I'm going to make it.
Hang out.
My
So
phone's
this is at
starting to
page
die.
4. So this is
Sorry, he said that his phone's about to die, so he doesn't know if he's going to make it. The audience can hear him. You put your headphones on. You can hear him too.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Jesse, there.
I'm here.
Let's just go to the post show. We've gone over an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just go to the post show.
Yeah, I'm running a little low, so
How low are
if there
you?
were any questions.
Well, can you do me a favor, Jesse? Let me just finish out this segment. Can you just sign off as Zoom and come back in 5 minutes, and then I'll be ready for you. Does that work? That way we can save your battery? All right, perfect.
Cool.
I don't want to get into technology with Jesse, right?
No.
He doesn't. If you just go pull up page 4 here, this is probably the most interesting. This is the Jan 6 withdrawing from the World Health Organization. There's a lot of things on energy related stuff. There's a hiring freeze, federal government, regulatory freeze pending review. That's interesting stuff. So apparently, if there's things in the process in the regulatory environment, you might like that. Mm-hmm. That there's a freeze until it's viewed by the new incoming people, and then like I was talking about restoring the freedom of speech. There's some things I disagree with on Trump, but I don't want to get into it. Here's one other thing, and did we bring this up? Ross Ulbricht was supposed to be pardoned on day 1. This is the guy that created Silk Road. He's in prison for life, and he promised the Libertarian Party that he would pardon him day 1. I think everyone will give him a pass if his first busy day he didn't get to it, but I think he's going to be held accountable on day 2. And then he also took a question about Russia, and I'll get more into that because Trump did say he'd have that war done in 24 hours. And although if Trump doesn't get done in 24 hours and it takes him a week, I'd be like, okay, that's still pretty good in that quagmire. But at some point, Trump has got to show us he's moving in that direction. And so I don't want to be critical of Trump on his first day. You can only imagine what that schedule is like. And I already outperformed Biden by eons. But at some point, we do need to see some promises kept. And I want to see where he goes with that.
We need to see some action there, especially with the war front with Israel and Palestine. Of course, they're talking about a ceasefire, and maybe Netanyahu is going to expand after this election, after this inauguration. It's kind of like what happened with Carter and Reagan, where they were holding hostages, and then when he took office, then they were released. Kind of has very similar feel and parallel there. I think with Ukraine, we are going to see a de-escalation. We're going to pull out, thank goodness. But I think in the Middle East, we're in for a show. That's for sure.
All right, last segment here about Biden pardoning Fauci and family members. This segment's brought to you by John Galt Mortgage Company. If you're looking to buy a home, give them a shot at financing that home. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com. Good people, top meme game. I'll just put that way. Go check them out on Facebook. You'll know what I'm talking about. So this is the C1 Dustin. This is Anthony Fauci being pardoned. Remember, Fauci is not being criminally prosecuted for anything right now. What's really fascinating about this pardon, it reads, Dr. Anthony S. Fauci, a full and unconditional pardon for any offenses against the United States which he may have committed or taken part of during the period from January 1st, 2014 through the date of this pardon, arising from or in any manner related to his service as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, as a member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force or the White House COVID-19 Response Team, or as chief medical advisor to the president. Why January 1st, 2014? It's not like it's January 1st, 2025. He just went a decade back. Right? Why did he pick January 2014? Now, I was going to explore this, and we'll do this in the post show because we're around time, and I got to get Jesse in here because people are going to want to hear more about DC. But I'll just put it this way. In 2014, a policy went into effect that you couldn't have gain-of-function research. There was a ban on gain-of-function research. And this affected Fauci very much. I'm just going to put it this way. Do they know something? Was Congress going to prosecute him? Were they going to go after Anthony Fauci for breaking that? Which, by the way, could have led to the outbreak of the coronavirus, which costs 6 million plus deaths worldwide and trillions of dollars, and the largest transfer of wealth between to the wealthy in the planet, the history of our planet. Like you might want to prosecute the person responsible for that, but he's got an unconditional pardon from Joe Biden for that period, which probably could have been the start of the pandemic, right? It wasn't even 2020 on where he kind of popped on the scene. It was 2014.
Right.
If they don't want us to be conspiracy theorists, why do stuff like that?
Why pick that day when Obama, to his credit, banned this type of research, and that's when it went overseas to China? But you bet your butt we're still doing that stuff here stateside. Look at Fort Detrick.
Yeah, and who's to say we're not doing it in the Wuhan, right?
Right.
All right, let's go to the post show. If you want to join us, we're going to have our great MAGA Jesse giving us more insight on what's going on in D.C. Been on the ground, been at an inauguration party. He's supposed to be at an inauguration, but that all got canceled and moved inside. So let's get some more details from MAGA Jesse. If you want to join us and get the insight of what's going on at the Capitol, you can join our premium subscribers. Go to truthhurtsnews.com. Right on the top, click support us for $8 a month, which really helps our program grow, or $88 a year, so you get a month off. You can join our fantastic crew as a premium subscriber. Plus, you could also, if you're watching on Rumble, click on Join Us on the top. That also sends you the same place. And then you'll get an account with Locals, and that account will give you access to our post show, which just continues the feed. Everyone else doesn't get to see it. You don't get to hear from MAGA Jesse on the ground. Sucks. So you want to be a premium subscriber. I know you want to be a premium subscriber. And we're going to have so many reasons this year. You're going to want to be a premium subscriber. So just go to truthhurtsnews.com and click on support us on the top, and you'll know you'll be in the right place. Thank you to our great sponsors, Warren Wessel, Keller Williams Realty, John Galt Mortgage Company, and Alpine Country in St. Cloud, Minnesota. For everyone that is a premium subscriber, we'll see you in 1 minute. For everyone else, we'll be back here on Thursday. Take care.